terrifying truth behind the haunted doll that frightened an entire community. The residents of Millfield had always considered themselves practical people. The small town, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, was known for its annual harvest festival and the historic clock tower that chimed on the hour. Nothing extraordinary ever happened in Millfield until the arrival of the porcelain doll. The discovery. It began when 10-year-old Lily Peterson discovered an antique doll while exploring her grandmother's attic. The doll was beautiful in an unsettling way. Perfectly coiffed black hair, a delicate white porcelain face with rosy cheeks, and glass eyes that seemed to follow whoever looked at them. The doll wore a faded Victorian-style dress with intricate lace detailing and a small golden locket hung around its neck. "Grandma, can I keep it?" Lily had asked, cradling the doll in her arms. Margaret Peterson looked uneasy. "I don't remember ever seeing that doll before," she admitted. "But I suppose if you found it here, it must be ours." Lily named the doll Amelia and took her everywhere. But within days, strange occurrences began plaguing the Peterson household. The disturbances. It started with small things, items mysteriously relocated overnight, the television turning on by itself, always to static. The family cat refusing to enter Lily's bedroom, hissing whenever the doll was nearby. Then one morning, Margaret found all the kitchen cabinets wide open, despite having closed them before bed. When she questioned Lily, the girl shrugged. "Maybe Amelia did it," she said with unsettling calm. "She likes to explore at night." Soon, Lily began reporting conversations with Amelia. She said the doll whispered to her when no one else was around, telling her secrets about people in town, things a child couldn't possibly know. The final straw came when Margaret awoke at 3 a.m. to find Lily standing motionless in the hallway, the doll clutched to her chest. "Amelia wants to go home," Lily said in a flat voice that didn't sound like her own. The next day, Margaret took the doll to Pastor Williams at the local church. Within hours, rumors spread through Millfield about the haunted doll from the Peterson attic. The panic. The story grew with each retelling. By the weekend, half the town believed the doll was possessed by the spirit of a murdered Victorian child. Others claimed it contained the soul of a witch who had been executed in the area centuries ago. Parents began keeping their children indoors after dark. The local newspaper ran a front-page story titled "Evil in Our Midst." At the town meeting, normally reserved neighbors shouted over each other with wild theories and demands for action. Someone suggested burning the doll. Another group wanted to call in paranormal investigators. The rational community of Millfield had descended into superstitious chaos. Meanwhile, Pastor Williams kept the doll locked in a cabinet in his office, claiming he could sometimes hear faint weeping coming from inside. The investigation. As panic gripped Millfield, 17-year-old Jacob Moore, editor of the high school newspaper and an aspiring journalist, decided to investigate. While the adults were consumed with fear, Jacob approached the situation with skepticism and curiosity. His first interview was with Lily Peterson. "Did you ever see Amelia move on her own?" he asked. Lily shook her head, "But I could feel her watching me, and sometimes when I woke up, she wasn't where I left her." Jacob then spoke with Margaret, who reluctantly admitted that she'd been working long hours and taking sleeping pills. "I suppose it's possible I did open those cabinets myself and just don't remember," she conceded. His next stop was the town library, where he researched the history of the Peterson house. What he discovered was intriguing. The house had once belonged to a toy maker named Ambrose Fleming in the late 1800s. With permission from Pastor Williams, Jacob examined the doll closely. The craftsmanship was remarkable, but what caught his attention was the golden locket. Inside was a faded inscription, AF and EF 889. Jacob continued digging into historical records and eventually found references to Ambrose Fleming and his daughter Eliza, who had died of tuberculosis at age 9. Then came the breakthrough. In an old newspaper from 1889, Jacob found a small advertisement. In memoriam of beloved daughter Eliza, master toymaker Ambrose Fleming creates lifelike porcelain dolls in her image. Custom orders available. The revelation. At the height of the town's hysteria, with a public cleansing ritual planned for the following day, Jacob called for an emergency town meeting. Reluctantly, the adults gathered to hear what the teenager had discovered. The doll isn't haunted, Jacob explained, presenting his evidence. Ambrose Fleming made it as a memorial to his daughter. He likely made dozens of these dolls. The electronic disturbances in the Peterson house are probably due to old wiring. Their house was one of the first in town to be electrified, according to records. He continued, the locket contains the initials of Ambrose and Eliza Fleming, and as for the doll moving, well, porcelain dolls are top-heavy. They can easily slide or tip over. Jacob's most compelling evidence came from interviewing Lily, away from the influence of the panicked adults. The girl admitted that she had moved the doll herself sometimes to play tricks and had invented the whispers for attention after overhearing adult conversations. The most terrifying thing about this doll, Jacob concluded, isn't some supernatural force. It's how quickly our community abandoned reason and embraced fear. The aftermath. The town's panic subsided slowly, with many people embarrassed by how easily they'd been swept up in the hysteria. The doll, now properly identified as a valuable antique memorial piece, was donated to the town's historical museum, where it became the centerpiece of an exhibit on Victorian mourning customs. Margaret Peterson discovered that the doll had likely belonged to her great-aunt, who had been a collector of unusual antiques. The house's electrical system was updated and the mysterious disturbances ceased. As for Lily, she admitted that she missed the excitement but was eventually gifted a modern doll that didn't inspire neighborhood panic. Pastor Williams, initially embarrassed, delivered a powerful sermon on mass hysteria and the importance of critical thinking, even in matters of faith. Jacob's investigation earned him a scholarship to study journalism at the State University. And in the quiet town of Millfield, residents learned a valuable lesson about the most terrifying force of all. Not ghosts or haunted dolls, but the contagious nature of fear itself and how easily it can possess an entire community. Sometimes the truth behind the terror is simply ourselves.